We live in a world that constantly tells us to move faster, to do more, to fix everything around us. We rush to solve problems, to change systems, to help others, often forgetting that we ourselves are not in order. We want to fix the world while we're still broken inside. And that's the biggest mistake most people make. You cannot fix the world if you haven't fixed yourself first. Because when you are unbalanced, every action you take, no matter how noble, carries a piece of your imbalance with it. Fixing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. Think of an airplane. Before every flight, we're told, put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. Why? Because you can't save someone else if you're running out of air yourself. The same rule applies to life. If your mind is scattered, if your emotions are unhealed, if your priorities are misplaced, you cannot give clarity, peace, or wisdom to the world. You'll only spread what's inside you. The truth is the world can wait. It's not going anywhere. But your growth, your healing, your peace, those things cannot wait forever. Too many people are trying to be heroes in a world they don't yet understand, trying to change others without ever changing themselves. Real change begins when you take responsibility for your own chaos. When you start asking, where am I wrong? Instead of, who is wrong? Fixing yourself means slowing down. It means listening to your thoughts, questioning your patterns, and understanding your pain instead of escaping it. It means building a character strong enough to handle success and a heart humble enough to handle failure. It's about making peace with your past, forgiving yourself for the things you didn't know back then, and choosing to grow wiser instead of bitter. You see, the world doesn't need perfect people. It needs people who are whole, people who are grounded, clear, and true to themselves. When you fix yourself, you naturally influence others. Your presence becomes calmer, your decisions become wiser, your relationships become more honest. That's how change really begins, not from a place of noise and reaction, but from a place of clarity and strength. So if you feel like you're falling behind, remind yourself the world can wait. You don't have to prove anything right now. You don't have to rush into every fight or fix every situation. The best thing you can do for yourself and for the world is to pause, heal, and grow. Because when you are fixed, everything you touch begins to align. Your life becomes a reflection of order instead of confusion, of peace instead of pressure. Fix yourself first, because once you do, the world won't need as much fixing. 5 keynotes of the speech: you cannot fix the world if you are still broken inside. Personal balance must come before external change. Fixing yourself is not selfish. It's the foundation of real impact and authentic contribution. True transformation begins with self-awareness, self-discipline, and inner healing. The world can wait. Rushing to fix others without fixing yourself only spreads more chaos. When you grow stronger and clearer within, your influence naturally transforms the world around you. You cannot fix the world if you are still broken inside. Personal balance must come before external change. This simple idea sounds obvious, yet it's one of the hardest truths to live by. Many people spend their lives trying to change their circumstances, their jobs, their relationships, even society itself, all without ever looking within. They pour all their energy into fixing what's outside, hoping it will fix what's inside. But no matter how much you change your environment, if you don't change yourself, you'll always find yourself trapped in the same patterns. When you are unbalanced, every action you take comes from a place of imbalance. It's like trying to paint a masterpiece with shaky hands. You can have the best tools, the brightest colors, the most expensive canvas, but if your hand trembles, the painting will never be what it could be. In the same way, you can't lead others, love deeply, or make meaningful change if your own foundation is unstable. Before you fix anything else, you must first bring yourself into alignment. You must understand who you are, what you value, and what is driving your choices. When people rush to fix the world while ignoring their own inner mess, they often end up doing more harm than good. Think about how often conflicts, misunderstandings, and even large-scale failures happen because people act out of insecurity, ego, or fear. Someone who hasn't faced their own pain will unconsciously project it onto others. Someone who hasn't learned patience will rush decisions. Someone who hasn't dealt with anger will turn every disagreement into a battle. The outer world reflects the inner world, and if your inner world is chaotic, your impact will be too. That's why personal balance is not just a luxury, it's a responsibility. The more influence you have, the more important it becomes to fix yourself first. Imagine a leader who cannot control their emotions trying to guide a team through a crisis. Imagine a parent trying to teach peace while constantly reacting in anger. Imagine a teacher trying to inspire others while feeling lost inside. It doesn't work. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be strong. It needs people who have actually done the work to become strong. Fixing yourself starts with awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to see. It requires brutal honesty to admit where you are wrong, where you've been hurt, and where you are avoiding growth. Many people distract themselves with business, blaming others or circumstances instead of facing their truth. But real strength comes from the courage to sit with your flaws and still choose to grow. It's not about being perfect. It's about being responsible enough to own your imperfections and improve them day by day. When you begin to work on yourself, the world around you starts to shift in subtle but powerful ways. Your relationships improve because you're no longer reacting from insecurity or pride. Your decisions become clearer because they're rooted in values instead of impulses. Your energy feels lighter because you're no longer fighting unseen battles within yourself. People start to sense that stability, and it inspires them to do the same. Without even trying, your growth starts to create growth in others. There's also something deeply liberating about realizing that you don't have to fix everything outside of you. So many people carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, believing they must solve every problem or save every person. But that's not how lasting change happens. Change begins small, with one person choosing to heal, to grow, to evolve. When you fix yourself, your example becomes the lesson. Others will learn not from your advice, but from your presence. Personal balance gives you clarity. It helps you see the world as it is, not as your fears or insecurities distort it to be. When you are at peace with yourself, you stop taking things personally. You stop overreacting to life's challenges. You begin to act with intention rather than emotion. That shift from reaction to response is what separates true leaders from everyone else. It's what separates peace from chaos. Fixing yourself first doesn't mean ignoring the world's problems. It means preparing yourself to handle them wisely. It's about building the strength, patience, and empathy needed to make real change. Because when you are whole, your actions come from understanding, not frustration. When you are centered, your influence becomes a force of calm rather than confusion. And when you are balanced, even the smallest act of kindness can ripple farther than you ever imagined. So, before you try to change others, pause and look inward. Ask yourself, am I living in balance? Am I acting from clarity or from pain? Am I leading with love or with ego? The answers to those questions will tell you everything you need to know. You cannot fix the world if you are still broken inside, because the world you see is a reflection of the person you are. Fix yourself first, and the world will start to make sense again. Fixing yourself is not selfish. It's the foundation of real impact and authentic contribution. Too often, we're told that focusing on ourselves means we're being self-centered, that taking time to heal, rest, or understand our own emotions is somehow a sign of weakness or vanity. Society glorifies self-sacrifice, but often misunderstands self-work. Yet the truth is, you can only give your best to the world when you are at your best within yourself. If your cup is empty, you can't pour into anyone else's. Self-care is not indulgence, it's maintenance. Self-awareness is not ego, it's wisdom. Think about it. Every meaningful relationship, every powerful leader, every act of kindness that truly lasts comes from someone who has taken time to understand themselves. You can't love deeply if you don't know what love means to you. You can't lead wisely if you don't know what drives your decisions. You can't inspire others if you haven't yet found your own inspiration. Fixing yourself is about building a solid foundation, so when you give from strength, not from exhaustion. When you're broken inside, even your best intentions can become distorted. You may help others not because you truly want to, but because you're seeking validation or trying to escape your own emptiness. You may stay busy solving other people's problems because it distracts you from facing your own. But when you take the time to fix yourself, to understand your pain, to confront your insecurities, to heal your past, your motives shift. You start helping people out of love, not need. You serve not because you're trying to fill a void, but because you're already whole. That's when your impact becomes authentic and sustainable. Fixing yourself is not about isolating from the world. It's about preparing yourself to meet the world with strength and clarity. It's like tuning an instrument before a performance. A musician doesn't start playing for the crowd until their instrument is perfectly tuned, because even a small imbalance can ruin the melody. Life is the same. You are the instrument. If you don't take the time to tune your thoughts, emotions, and intentions, the sound you produce, your words, your actions, your energy will be off key. And no matter how hard you play, it won't create harmony. Many people misunderstand this process because it looks like slowing down. They think if they stop to heal, they'll fall behind. But the truth is, when you fix yourself, you move forward faster in the long run. You make clearer choices. You attract better opportunities. You build stronger connections. You stop wasting energy on things that drain you because you finally understand what truly matters. The time you spend on yourself is not time lost. It's time invested, and it pays dividends in every area of your life. When you prioritize your own growth, you also set an example for others. People learn more from what you embody than what you say. When they see you handling challenges calmly, admitting mistakes openly, and staying true to your values, they begin to reflect on their own lives. Your growth silently gives them permission to grow too. In this way, fixing yourself becomes one of the most generous things you can do. You stop contributing to the world's chaos and start contributing to its healing. Think about the difference between someone who reacts and someone who responds. A person who reacts is ruled by emotion, by unhealed wounds and unexamined fears. But a person who responds has done the inner work. They've learned patience, empathy, and perspective. They don't project their pain onto others. They use their experiences to understand others better. That's what fixing yourself does. It transforms your reactions into wisdom. And wisdom, more than anything else, is what the world desperately needs. This work is not glamorous. Fixing yourself often means confronting things you'd rather avoid. It means admitting you've been wrong, letting go of pride, forgiving others, and forgiving yourself. It's uncomfortable because growth always requires honesty. But that discomfort is where transformation begins. You don't become stronger by pretending to be fine. You become stronger by facing what isn't fine and working through it with patience and compassion. The irony is, When you stop trying to be everything for everyone and start focusing on becoming the best version of yourself, you end up helping more people than you ever imagined. Because now your energy carries truth. Your actions are aligned. Your words carry depth. You stop seeking approval and start creating impact. Fixing yourself teaches you that the greatest contribution you can make to the world is to live as an example of clarity, peace, and authenticity. So, fixing yourself is not selfish. It's one of the most selfless things you can do. It ensures that when you show up for others, you show up whole. When you give, it's from abundance, not lack. When you lead, it's from humility, not ego. And when you love, it's from fullness, not fear. The people who truly change the world are not the ones who try to fix everything around them first, but the ones who fix what's inside and then move through the world with steady hearts and clear minds. True transformation begins with self-awareness, self-discipline, and inner healing. Every great change that has ever lasted, whether in a person or a community, started when someone became deeply aware of themselves, of their thoughts, their emotions, and their behaviors. You cannot transform what you don't understand. Many people chase success, happiness, or peace without realizing that these things can't be achieved through external accomplishments alone. They come from mastering your inner world first. And that mastery begins when you start observing yourself with honesty instead of judgment. Self-awareness is the mirror through which transformation becomes possible. It's the quiet courage to ask yourself hard questions. Why do I react this way? What am I afraid of? What do I really want? And to sit long enough with the answers, no matter how uncomfortable they may be. Most people spend their lives running away from these questions, seeking distractions in work, entertainment, or other people. But when you stop running and turn inward, you start discovering patterns. You notice how your fears control your choices, how your habits shape your results, and how your mindset creates your reality. That awareness is not always pleasant, but it's powerful because you can't fix what you refuse to see. Yet awareness alone isn't enough. Once you see yourself clearly, the next step is discipline, the daily, consistent act of choosing growth over comfort. Self-discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. It's waking up early when you'd rather sleep, choosing honesty when lying would be easier, controlling your emotions when reacting would feel satisfying. Discipline isn't punishment, it's alignment. It's the ability to make decisions that serve your higher self rather than your temporary feelings. Without discipline, self-awareness becomes just knowledge. But with discipline, it becomes transformation. Discipline is what teaches you consistency. It's easy to be motivated for a day or inspired for a week, but transformation requires time, patience, and repeated effort. Every time you stay committed to your growth, even when no one notices, even when it's hard, you're rewiring your character. You're teaching yourself that you can be trusted, that you can rely on your own strength. That kind of integrity builds confidence that no external validation can replace. And over time, that quiet discipline starts to shape everything: your mindset, your habits, your relationships, and your purpose. But the deepest part of transformation lies in inner healing. Because until you heal the wounds of your past, you'll keep reliving them in your future. Inner healing is about forgiving yourself for your mistakes, letting go of guilt and resentment, and releasing the emotional baggage that keeps you stuck. So many people try to move forward while dragging the weight of old pain behind them. They think they can outrun it by staying busy or pretending it doesn't matter. But what we resist persists. Healing requires slowing down and allowing yourself to feel what you once avoided. It means facing the pain instead of burying it, and understanding that your scars are not weaknesses. They're evidence that you survived. Inner healing also teaches compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. You begin to understand that you were doing the best you could with the knowledge you had at that time. You stop blaming yourself for the things you didn't know and start focusing on how you can grow from them. That shift from self-criticism to self-compassion is where real transformation happens. Because once you stop fighting yourself, you free up the energy to build yourself. Healing doesn't erase your past, it changes your relationship with it. The pain that once controlled you becomes a teacher instead of a prison. When self-awareness, discipline, and healing come together, something powerful happens. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and start becoming the creator of your life. You begin to make choices consciously instead of reacting unconsciously. You stop repeating cycles and start setting direction. You no longer need the world to change for you to feel peace, because peace starts within you. Transformation becomes less about achieving something and more about becoming someone who is whole, intentional, and true. It's important to understand that transformation is not a single event. It's not something that happens overnight after reading a book or listening to a motivational talk. It's a lifelong process of unlearning, relearning, and growing. There will be setbacks, doubts, and moments when you feel like nothing is changing. But if you keep showing up, if you keep choosing awareness over ignorance, discipline over distraction, and healing over avoidance, you'll wake up one day and realize how far you've come. The person who once struggled to stay calm now responds with wisdom. The one who once felt lost now walks with direction. True transformation isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet and steady. It happens in small decisions, in the way you speak to yourself, in the habits you repeat, in the thoughts you choose to entertain. And as you transform yourself, You start influencing others without even trying. Your energy changes, your perspective deepens, and your presence becomes grounding. That's how transformation spreads from one aware, disciplined, healed person at a time. So when you think about changing your life, start from the inside. Look within before you look around. Because when you master your inner world through self-awareness, discipline, and healing, the outer world begins to reflect that mastery back to you. True transformation will never begin with what you have. It begins with who you choose to become. The world can wait. Rushing to fix others without fixing yourself only spreads more chaos. In today's world, everything feels urgent. Every cause, every argument, every injustice seems to demand your immediate attention. We're taught to constantly act, to respond, to do something. But in that constant rush to fix everything outside of us, we forget that our internal state determines the quality of our actions. A mind filled with confusion can't create clarity for others. A heart burdened with bitterness can't spread peace. And a person who hasn't healed their own wounds will only project them onto others. That's why sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for the world is to pause and fix yourself first. When you're rushing to fix others while you're still broken, your actions might look noble, but they often come from a place of restlessness, not wisdom. It's like trying to clean a window while standing in the middle of a storm. No matter how much effort you put in, it will never stay clear because the storm itself is still raging inside you. Many people don't realize this. They believe that constant activity equals progress, that business equals purpose. But rushing is not the same as growing. Sometimes rushing only deepens the mess because it doesn't give you time to understand the problem clearly, especially when the problem begins within. The truth is, when you haven't fixed yourself, your desire to fix others can become a form of avoidance. It feels easier to point out what's wrong with the world than to admit what's wrong within you. You see people's flaws more clearly than your own, and you begin to think that changing them will somehow bring you peace. But peace doesn't come from control, it comes from understanding. And that understanding begins with you. The world doesn't need another person reacting out of anger or trying to prove something. It needs people who have taken the time to slow down, reflect, and act from a place of inner stillness. When you give yourself permission to slow down, you begin to see things as they are, not as your emotions paint them to be. You start noticing how much of your urgency was really anxiety disguised as purpose. You realize that your attempts to fix others were sometimes an unconscious way to avoid facing your pain, your fears, your failures. But once you start fixing yourself, that urgency fades. You learn patience. You stop forcing outcomes and start trusting timing. The world will always have problems, but you begin to understand that not every problem is yours to solve, not every battle is yours to fight, and not every storm requires your presence. When you slow down long enough to heal and grow, your perspective changes. You begin to see that true change doesn't come from trying to control others. It comes from becoming an example of what change looks like. The calmest person in the room has the most influence, not the loudest. The person who has fixed themselves no longer needs to convince anyone. Their energy speaks louder than their words. By fixing yourself, you bring order to the part of the world that you can actually control, your thoughts, your emotions, your choices. And that order has a ripple effect. People around you start to feel that peace, and without even realizing it, they begin to mirror it. The world can wait because it's not going anywhere. The problems of the world have existed for centuries, and they will exist for centuries more. But your life, your mind, and your growth, they can't wait forever. If you spend all your time trying to repair everything outside you, you'll reach a point where you've helped everyone but yourself. You'll wake up exhausted, resentful, and disconnected, wondering why you feel empty despite all your efforts. Fixing yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. Because only from a place of wholeness can you give without losing yourself. When you choose to pause, the world doesn't fall apart, it recalibrates. You start to realize that your value doesn't come from how much you do, but from who you are becoming. You begin to appreciate silence, solitude, and reflection. You learn to respond instead of react. And that change within you becomes contagious. When others see you staying grounded in chaos, they are reminded that it's possible. When they see you holding peace in uncertainty, they find strength in your calmness. That's how fixing yourself first changes more than any amount of rushing ever could. The urge to fix others often comes from good intentions, but without self-awareness, good intentions can still cause harm. If you act from fear, you'll spread fear. If you act from anger, you'll spread anger. If you act from pain, you'll spread pain. But when you fix yourself and act from peace, you spread peace. That's the power of alignment. You don't need to rush to make a difference. You just need to be in the right state to make a real one. So let the world wait. The world will always need fixing, but your inner balance will determine how you contribute to it. If you rush, you'll act out of noise. If you pause, you'll act out of clarity. The world doesn't need more people running in every direction, trying to solve everything at once. It needs people who are clear, calm, and centered. Because those are the people who make decisions that last. Those are the people who build instead of break, who heal instead of hurt. And they only become that way when they choose to fix themselves first. When you grow stronger and clearer within, your influence naturally transforms the world around you. True influence has never come from force, manipulation, or authority. It comes from presence, from the quiet strength of someone who has done the inner work. You don't need to shout to be heard when your energy speaks for you. People are drawn to those who live with clarity and peace because in a world full of confusion and noise, calmness is magnetic. The way you carry yourself, the way you respond under pressure, the way you handle challenges, all of these reflect the state of your inner world, and that reflection shapes how others behave, think, and grow. When you fix yourself, you become a mirror for others to see what's possible. Your growth becomes a silent permission slip for those around you to grow too. Most people don't change because they're told to. They change because they witness someone else live differently and realize they can do the same. That's why the most powerful leaders, teachers, and healers are not the loudest. They are the most centered. They embody their message instead of preaching it. Their presence gives people comfort, not because they have all the answers, but because they carry peace even amidst uncertainty. That kind of peace can't be faked. It comes only from doing the deep internal work. When you are stronger within, you no longer react to the world. You respond to it. You stop letting circumstances dictate your mood or your mindset. Instead of being pulled into the chaos around you, you become the calm in the middle of it. And when people encounter that calm, they feel safer, more grounded, and more hopeful. That's influence, not through control, but through alignment. When you stand firm in your truth, others feel it. When you act from clarity, your decisions ripple outward and inspire others to think differently. Clarity is one of the most underrated forms of strength. A clear person is unshakable because they know what they stand for and where they're going. The clearer you become, the less you need to convince anyone of anything. Your focus, your discipline, and your peace speak louder than your words ever could. People sense authenticity. They recognize when someone's confidence comes from integrity rather than ego. And that authenticity naturally attracts trust. You don't chase influence. It follows you because people can feel the difference between performance and truth. As you grow stronger inside, your relationships change too. You start attracting people who match your new energy and drifting away from those who thrive on drama, negativity, or confusion. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You no longer have the same tolerance for chaos because you've learned to value peace. This shift doesn't just transform your inner circle, it transforms the quality of your conversations, your opportunities, and your impact. You find yourself surrounded by people who challenge you to grow, not drain you to stay the same, and that environment multiplies your influence because collective growth always begins with individual growth. Even in your smallest interactions, your inner strength begins to show. The way you handle disagreement, the way you listen, the patience you show, all of these influence others without you realizing it. You might never know whose life you touched simply by remaining kind when it was easier to be cruel or by staying calm when everyone else lost control. Influence is not always about big gestures or grand speeches. Sometimes it's about quiet consistency, the way you show up day after day, living your values even when no one is watching. When you are clear within, your decisions become purposeful. You stop wasting time on things that don't align with who you are. You say no to distractions without guilt because you understand your direction. And when others see your focus, they start to question their own lack of it. You begin to set an invisible standard, not by demanding more from others, but by expecting more from yourself. That's how transformation spreads, not through pressure, but through inspiration. A person who has fixed themselves doesn't just create change, they sustain it. Because their motivation isn't built on emotion or approval, it's built on understanding. They know why they do what they do, and that purpose anchors them during uncertainty. That kind of stability is rare, and people are drawn to it. In a world full of quick opinions and temporary passion, the steady person becomes a guide. Their influence lasts long after their words are forgotten because what they represent is consistency, resilience, and truth. You don't need to set out to change the world to actually change it. When you grow stronger and clearer within, you start transforming your environment one interaction at a time. You become the reason someone feels understood, the reason someone chooses kindness over anger, or the reason someone finally believes in themselves again. Every healed person becomes a light, and every light lessens the darkness around it. You can't control how others live, but you can control the example you set. And that example often becomes the seed of someone else's transformation. So, when you commit to growing stronger inside and clearer in your purpose, your influence becomes natural, not forced, not demanded, but earned. The world around you begins to shift because you've shifted. You stop trying to change others and instead focus on embodying the change yourself. And that is how the quiet power of personal growth becomes the loudest form of transformation there is. Fixing yourself first is not about stepping away from the world. It's about preparing yourself to serve it better. The greatest mistake people make is believing that their value lies in how much they can do for others, how quickly they can act, or how loudly they can fight for change. But real change never begins outside, it begins within. The world doesn't need more people running in circles, reacting to chaos, or trying to fix everything they don't understand. It needs people who have done the quiet, difficult, inner work. People who have healed their wounds, learned discipline, found balance, and built clarity. When you fix yourself first, everything else begins to align. Your relationships improve because you're no longer giving from emptiness. Your influence grows because your actions come from peace, not pressure. Your purpose becomes clear because you're finally acting from who you truly are, not who the world told you to be. The impact you make is no longer scattered. It becomes focused, steady, and powerful. You no longer chase meaning, you live it. The world can wait. It will always have problems to solve, voices to raise, and fires to put out. But your inner world, your growth, your healing, your strength cannot wait forever. Because the better you become, the better everything around you becomes. That's how real change happens, not through haste, not through noise, but through individuals who are whole, aware, and grounded. Fix yourself first, and you won't just change your own life, you'll change the lives of everyone who crosses your path. The world doesn't need you to be perfect, it just needs you to be whole. And when you become that, the world doesn't have to wait anymore, because your presence itself becomes the change it's been waiting for.